Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you are listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com, Transrelational Healing, and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about something very important, and that is that you need to stop trying to get narcissists to agree with you. This means just in general and specifically about their own actions and how they are behaving. You might think you're not doing that, especially considering that you're just talking about facts and people don't have to agree with facts. Facts just are, whether people agree with them or not. Most people realize this, of course, which is why most people can be swayed by facts and evidence. Most people can accept when they are proven wrong by facts. If you're arguing with someone about what year World War II started, for example, most people will concede that they're wrong and change their position when you show them that they aren't correct. More than that, most people will update their internal data banks to include this information and to replace the wrong information. Similarly, if you're discussing someone's behavior, most people don't try to dispute or deny that they did something when they know that somebody else was there and saw them, or that there's a picture of it or a video and things like that. Narcissists are not most people. As we discussed in the episode, Stop Trying to Outsmart Narcissists, facts and evidence mean nothing to them. They really don't. Pathologically narcissistic personalities have extremely rigid, fixed mindsets. They find it very difficult to change information that they think is true. That's in part what pathological means. This is one of the reasons they don't seem to learn from experience or consequences, for example. They might change a particular behavior, but only if they absolutely have to, and their goals tend not to change at all. For example, a narcissist who goes to prison for breaking into people's houses often does not come out of prison having learned not to be a thief anymore. They tend to come out with ideas of how to keep stealing but not go to prison for it anymore. The specific behavior might change. They might not break into people's houses anymore, but the goal does not, and they usually keep stealing from other people in some way. We see this in the quote-unquote evolution of career criminals all the time. They just try to find new or different ways to get away with the same old thing. People in prison for sexual assault often come out with this same idea too, unfortunately. They don't decide not to sexually assault people anymore. They decide to kill their victims so that they can't be told on anymore. There are unfortunately many examples of this. This is an escalation in behavior, perhaps, but it's also just logical to them. If I want to stop going to prison, I need to stop being caught. The idea that they're going to prison because they're doing something wrong does not really occur to them, nor do they care if they're told. It's not about that. As far as these kinds of people are concerned, it's not about going to prison for doing things wrong. You go to prison for being caught. This mindset is very hard to change, and their other mindsets are generally no different. You can see a huge lack of empathy here as well. That's why so many of them are not sorry. What's to be sorry? If you have no real empathy and no real appreciation of the emotional reality of other people, then you're really not going to be able to see it any other way. If you take the wrong that you're doing to other people out of this equation, it's just a game where you're trying to get away with something, a higher stakes game of cops and robbers. I'm going to do this thing I'm not supposed to do, and you're going to try to catch me. When sentenced to death for the murders that he committed, Billy the Kid was asked by a reporter why he was smiling and laughing in court. Supposedly, the kid's response was something like, "What's the use of being gloomy about it? The laugh's on me this time, that's all." During an interview with police about his many crimes besides murder, serial killer Israel Keys laughed and said, "Everything's free if you just take it." John Gacy's last words before he was executed were, "Kiss my ass." People who don't have the capacity to understand that other people have feelings and rights are not concerned about respecting these things at all. So appealing to that is not going to make a difference, even if a narcissist is not a killer or some kind of career criminal. It just doesn't matter to them. So besides the rigidity of their mindsets, there's also nothing emotional to make them want to change the way that they look at things or the things that they're doing. They don't know or care that it's wrong. To them, it's not. Not only that, they don't want to change it anyway. This is a power and control thing, but it's also an existential thing, meaning to do with their existence. The way narcissists view themselves is extremely important. They don't have stable identities in any way, so they have to rely on feedback from other people to sustain a self image. How you see me is how I can see me. Also, they define themselves via binary comparison, especially in self defense against a negative image of themselves that they've been presented with. This is why if you say they are bad, they say you are bad, because there can't be two bads. It's binary, it's black and white. Therefore, if you're bad, then I'm good. If you're stupid, then I'm smart. This is some of that black and white thinking that we always hear about regarding narcissistic personalities. If you call me bad, then by definition, you're good, which means when I call you bad, that makes me good. Again, we can see this type of thing in examples of narcissists who have done the worst things imaginable and admitted it and even bragged about it. Even they still will not admit the things that they think make them look bad. Ted Bundy refused to admit to any necrophilic behavior, even though they had proof that he did that. Gacy would not admit that he was gay, even though he clearly was. Richard Ramirez would not listen to talk about any crimes that he committed against children, even though he bragged about everything else, including horrific crimes against elderly women who were over 80 years old. The reason they would not admit to these things was the same in each and every situation. These things were considered sick and depraved by them, and they therefore did not want to be thought of like that. Clearly, they were not able to admit it even to themselves. Narcissists will often put distance between themselves and their actions somehow. For example, they might say, when you got hurt, instead of when I hit you. Or, well, then something happened and the gun went off, instead of then I shot the guy. Others may say things like, yes, I did that, but that's not me though. That's not who I am. I don't do things like that. This we also see in those who commit awful crimes and admit it. Again, even they still will not admit the things that they think make them look bad. That's how pathological narcissism functions across the board. They need to control how they are seen because this forms their reality and their experience of themselves. This is how power and control plays into it. People who are very narcissistic are extremely concerned with power and controlling how they are seen is a big part of why. The need for power and control and the existential crises go hand in hand. They need power and control to prevent the psychological collapse that would come if the identity narrative they have of themselves were to be disrupted. For people with a stable, developed, and cohesive identity, it's hurtful when other people think that you're something you're not, but it's not going to destroy you. You have a grounded, developed identity and you know who you are. You do not define yourself through how other people see you. For people who are pathologically narcissistic, this is not the case. They cannot generate this without feedback and participation from other people, which means they need to control their environment and everybody in it to make sure that they get the feedback that matches the image they have of themselves or that they need to project of themselves in order to function. It's like being in a play. If all of the actors just start saying and doing whatever they want, the story of the play is ruined. They have to react a certain way. They have to say and do certain things. They have to follow the script and do exactly as they're told according to their roles, or the play is not going to work to tell the story that it's supposed to be telling. If people do not follow the script, the narcissist's illusion of themselves is totally ruined. They attempt to control everything to prevent that from happening because if it does, the psychological consequences for them are generally disastrous. They're very extreme. It's important to remember that this typically goes far beyond just trying to fool other people into thinking that the narcissist is somebody they're not in order to get away with stuff. This is often what it results in, but as a thing, it's much more important to their psychology and functioning than that. That's how it impacts you. How it impacts them is much bigger. This is about creating a reality they can actually live in and experience themselves through. They live in a fantasy land, an illusion of themselves and their lives and their place in the world. And this cannot happen in any tangible way unless other people go along with it. They need other people to believe in the illusion and help to make it real so that they can believe it, so that they can live in it. If that doesn't happen, they can't. This is why trying to get them to agree with you is pointless. First of all, they are in a different reality than you are anyway, which you already know from interacting with them. These people are way out in left field somewhere. Secondly, they tend to be extremely contrary, and very often they view agreeing with the other person or even listening to them at all as a form of submission and giving up the power position, which you may not know but undoubtedly have seen. These two things alone make the situation legitimately impossible. Add in the existential need to protect their narrative, and it's just a colossal waste of time. This is regarding any subject, but the biggest waste of time of all is trying to get them to acknowledge their own harmful behavior toward others, which is what most people are trying to do. The problem is there's a fundamental disconnect here that cannot be bridged. From where you're sitting, you are trying to show them facts about their harmful behavior and get them to care about that so that they'll stop doing it. From where they're sitting, you're trying to get them to agree with your opinion that they're an abuser and just a bad person. This is just not going to happen. Even people who are not narcissists tend to find acknowledging their own harmful behavior extremely difficult. And if you consider the fact that this personality is literally unable to cope with real life in any way, to the point where they have to pretend that they're somebody else just to face life at all, you can see the problem here. It's just not something this person is going to be able to do. They don't believe it's really true anyway, because in addition to these things that we've been talking about, an external locus of control and their narcissistic defense mechanisms such as projection, denial, and their problems that affect perception like cognitive distortions legitimately prevent them from seeing it. To them, it's just a battle of whose opinion wins. They cannot see the rest of this at all, as you can probably already tell from dealing with them. They just don't see it. On top of all this, narcissists have serious difficulty with empathy. They cannot understand the emotional reality of other people. They don't hear your feelings or the facts or whatever. All they hear is that you're criticizing them. You're calling them bad. You're saying they're wrong. You're saying mean things. You're blaming them. You're shaming them. You're attacking them. That's all they hear. This just reinforces the defensive position they've already taken, that you're attacking them and you're trying to convince them into seeing themselves as a bad person. This triggers that fear of existential crisis that's attached to not having a stable identity because, as we discussed in depth in the episode Stop Trying to Be the Good Guy with Narcissists, to see themselves as bad is absolutely intolerable. It can trigger collapse. They may react to your perceived attempts to do this then with extreme defensiveness and hostility, even rage and aggression. This causes even more damage because now not only do they not care that you're hurt, they're hurting you more. You try to explain differently, in a better way, with different words, using examples, using metaphors, using sock puppets, and still all they hear is that you're attacking and criticizing them. They never make the connection to you or to your pain at all. Not even once. It's all about them. And the more you explain, the bigger of a threat that they see. The more convinced they become that you're just trying to harm them and convince them to see themselves as bad. Which makes you a very bad person indeed, because for that to happen would destroy them. Many narcissists will even say things like that. You're trying to kill me. You're trying to erase me. You're trying to destroy me. This is where we so often see the misunderstandings that these relationships are notorious for. So many issues with narcissists come from legitimate misunderstandings. They often take things wrong, take things personally, then get offended or hurt when they don't need to be, causing enormous problems over nothing repeatedly, and then they will not listen when you try to explain or correct them. For the other person, this is very frustrating because you can probably see very clearly what the problem is and how to fix it. There's been a misunderstanding, it needs to be corrected, right? Problem solved. Except the problem's not what you think it is. There's been a misunderstanding, yes, but it's not a failure of communication, which could be resolved by communicating better. This is a failure to understand the emotional reality of other people. It's a fundamental disconnect that cannot be resolved by explaining yourself over and over again or resolved by you doing anything. It can't be resolved at all. This person does not have the capability to understand that you're a person like them who has feelings and motives and thoughts and beliefs and a life all of your own. That's why they've misunderstood your meaning or your motive or your words or whatever to be about them. They took it personally because they are the only person they can see. This is not a communication problem, which is why more and better and different communication doesn't fix it. What it does do is result in a circular dynamic where you try to tell the narcissist how they've hurt you. They accuse you of attacking or criticizing them by saying that, which results in you defending yourself and either getting angry or insisting that that's not your intent. Both of these things then look to them like you're dismissing their feelings and refusing to take accountability for the wrong that you've done to them, and around and around and around it goes. Narcissists cannot connect their actions to your feelings because they're unable to recognize the emotional reality of you. They have severe empathy deficits, so to them it often looks like you're just attacking them and trying to make them think that they're bad. Even if they could understand that you have a real point and real feelings, it probably wouldn't matter in these situations anyway. Narcissists prioritize self-defense over resolution, over resolving issues and problems. This is why they so often refuse to engage in productive communication at all. They won't listen, they interrupt, they go silent, they stonewall, they mock, they insult, they leave, they yell, they get violent. It's not about resolving the actual problem in any way. It's about defending themselves and holding on to the power position. They view defending themselves through the lens of winning the conflict as if it's a war. One does not resolve war, one wins war. This means no resolution, no compromise, no negotiation, no mercy. You don't win wars with compromise and mercy, folks. That's just not how it is. You win wars by being willing to do whatever it takes to win. And you're sitting over here like, I'm literally not trying to be in a war. I'm trying to be in a relationship. But to narcissists, these are one and the same. In war, people want to hurt you and control you and win. In relationships, people want to hurt you and control you and win. This appears to be how they see it. Many of them will even say so, and it's absolutely how they act. If you're dealing with a narcissist and you're trying to convince them of anything, reach any kind of agreement, get them to acknowledge anything, you will save a lot of time and pain for yourself if you can recognize that this person agreeing with you about anything, specifically how harmful or wrong or whatever else their own behavior is almost certainly a lost cause. You cannot even get them to agree on what year World War II started, even by showing them proof. These personalities would rather suffocate and drop dead if breathing meant that you would get what you want somehow. They would rather do anything than lose, including die, because if they choose to die, then they keep the power and the control. That really is the only thing that truly matters to them. This is another thing we can see examples of in narcissists who have committed horrible acts against other people, like murder. Many of them take their own lives, not because they feel bad, not because they're so depressed, but because they refuse to let the police or the state or the court system or whoever else win and take the power away from them in this way. Some have even left notes or communicated this in other ways. They would literally rather be dead than lose. And even if the behavior isn't always that extreme, the attitude generally is. As an aside, contrary to what many people believe, suicide among pathologically narcissistic people is higher than the general population. Some studies suggest that it is much higher, and pathological narcissism is strongly associated with more lethal methods being chosen. Their inability to lose is very likely part of the reason for this. And again, many people don't believe that, but it's very easy to verify. A simple Google search will turn up many studies, papers, articles. This association has been known and been documented for years. Now, you might be thinking, yes, but it wouldn't be me winning here. I'm not winning. Them acknowledging their own behavior or agreeing to this compromise or whatever the thing is I'm trying to convince them of or get them to acknowledge or agree with would actually be good for them. It's not just me getting what I want. Right. So You know that, and I know that because we live in reality, and that's the reality of the situation. But reality does not matter here, as we have discussed so many times on this channel. It just really doesn't. They see what they see, they hear what they hear, they think what they think, facts notwithstanding. It is what it is. This person prioritizes self-defense and winning above everything else because to lose power and control by losing the conflict is literally intolerable, as we have been discussing. Listening is losing. Compromising is losing. Agreeing is losing. Acknowledging is losing. Submitting is losing. And it doesn't matter that you think there's no conflict or that you're not trying to have a conflict or that you don't want to have a conflict. There is one. And if you're not winning it, you're losing. So when you're deciding what course of action to take in whatever situation you find yourself in, remember that if you truly believe you are dealing with a pathologically narcissistic personality, you need to understand that you're dealing with a person who feels that simply listening to the words that you're saying is submitting, and submitting is losing, and losing is death. This sounds extremely dramatic and absurd, and it is, but narcissists tend to be extremely dramatic, extremely absurd people. Reality is on your side, and so are the facts, but these things will not help you in this situation. Nothing will in that regard because this person simply will not do what you want, and for all the reasons we discussed, they cannot be convinced to do so. It is what it is. Accept that reality and work within it. That's the only thing there is to do. And remember, you don't need narcissists to agree with you. Your experience is your experience, whether someone else will admit it or not. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, via text, via messenger, via email, and through Skype and Zoom for clients worldwide. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I teach workshops, seminars, and clinics, so if you are interested in seeing what we are running this month, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that. I have several books in publication, so if you are interested in picking up a copy of any or all of those, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that, or find them on amazon.com. And if you're interested in joining our support group with access to exclusive content, weekly support meetings, and more, you can visit littleshaman.org to do that as well. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast here on thelittleshaman.com. Just type that in, it'll take you right to the YouTube channel, brought to you by Relational Healing, shamanspiritcenter.com, and littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you. Have a beautiful day.
If you've been struggling through dealing with or recovering from an unhealthy relationship with a narcissist or other toxic personality, the Little Shaman has a catalog of over 500 YouTube videos designed to support your journey from discovery to recovery. You can also find additional resources on the Little Shaman website, including tools, courses, workshops, a support group with weekly meetings, and one-on-one appointments with the Little Shaman that are open to clients worldwide. There's even an AI chatbot built and trained exclusively by the Little Shaman using her work that can answer questions 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. For more information, visit littleshaman.org. You can listen to the Little Shaman wherever you find your favorite podcasts.